Let's explore these mysteries together in today's video. Unsealing a pyramid. You know the feeling of cleaning out your attic and finding forgotten magazines from the 80s? Now imagine instead of finding your old yearbook, you open a pyramid sealed for 4,000 years, and inside lies ancient chaos. Dasha, Egypt, a desert already famous for the 3 pyramids built by Pharaoh Sneferu around 2600 BCE. Sneferu oversaw the construction of the Bent Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, and the Maiden Pyramid. Now, archaeologists have uncovered a new pyramid remarkably intact, sealed tighter than the spaghetti your mum froze years ago. It began when quarry workers found limestone blocks that looked unusually precise. Dr. Chris Anton, a British Egyptologist and walking encyclopedia of the ancient world, led the survey team, with the Smithsonian Channel documenting the process. Inside, they discovered an underground burial chamber untouched for 4,000 years. It likely still had that new tomb smell, or maybe an old one. Instead of a peaceful royal resting place, they found a scene of devastation, artifacts smashed, funerary items shattered as if a raccoon party had swept through, despite the tomb being sealed. The team suspects an inside job. The tomb was looted before it was sealed, like robbing your own house and then locking the door before going on vacation. Dr. Anton called it an ancient crime scene. Amid the wreckage, they recovered a broken canopic chest. Using modern scanning technology, they deciphered faint hieroglyphs revealing the tomb's owner, Princess Hatshepsut. Don't confuse her with the famous Pharaoh Hatshepsut. This was a different Hatshepsut, an unknown princess with no records, statues, or written legacy. Yet she had her own pyramid, something rare even for powerful pharaohs. Historians believe she may have lived during the 13th dynasty, a chaotic era of Egypt's history, full of tangled bloodlines and royal intrigue. So here lies a nameless princess, her tomb plundered, sealed, and forgotten. Was this the aftermath of a royal power struggle, a political purge after death, or simply the burial crew helping themselves to valuables? The true origins of the Sphinx. The Sphinx has always stood as one of the most enigmatic symbols of the ancient world, the subject of endless speculation. But what if no one actually built the Sphinx? What if this famous monument was sculpted by wind and rain over millennia, rather than human hands? A small group of scientists at New York University proposed a bold theory that overturns centuries of accepted knowledge. Traditionally, experts have agreed that the Sphinx's face was carved by master stoneworkers, clear proof that nature could not produce such a likeness, no more than wind could carve Mount Rushmore. However, the debate isn't about the head but the body. How could a massive lion-shaped form emerge naturally? The NYU Applied Mathematics Laboratory simulated erosion on clay mounds using water to mimic desert winds. The results were astonishing. The erosion naturally created a miniature baby sphinx without any tools, just physics and flowing water. Nature, in this case, could have shaped the sphinx long before humans appeared to refine it. The team suspects that thousands of years ago, the rock already resembled a giant cat when the Egyptians arrived. Perhaps they merely carved a human face onto an already lion-like natural formation. Yet, the mystery doesn't end there. Geologist Robert Schoch controversially suggested the Sphinx could be 12,000 years old, far older than the mainstream estimate of 4,500 years. Ukrainian geologists went further, claiming erosion patterns indicate the Sphinx could be 8,000 years old, a time when modern humans did not exist. Only Homo heidelbergensis, hippos, and saber-toothed tigers roamed this land. If true, the question of who built the Sphinx remains wide open. Some theories suggest the ancient Egyptians used vibrational technology to build the Sphinx, harnessing sound waves to lift and move massive stones, as if they possessed technology far beyond their time. Swedish scientist Olaf Alexandersson once proposed that sound could counteract gravity, though such technology remains purely hypothetical. Adding to the intrigue is the idea of a lost archive buried beneath the Sphinx. Multiple laser scans have detected anomalies under the monument, possibly a large chamber. Legend speaks of the Hall of Records, a secret room said to contain humanity's true history, ancient technology, spiritual knowledge, and even the story of Atlantis. Some believe it holds scrolls akin to the Dead Sea discoveries. The legend of the Hall of Records originates from the visions of psychic Edgar Cayce in the mid-20th century, fueling speculation of a hidden archive beneath the Sphinx. Stories tell of the Greek philosopher Solon visiting Egypt, discovering this secret chamber with a mysterious priest, and learning the story of Atlantis later recorded by Plato, much of this theory relies on psychic readings and ultrasound scans. Robert Schoch, who supports the 120000 age, reported detecting a rectangular cavity beneath the Sphinx with sonar in the 1990s. When this finding gained attention, Egyptian authorities quickly halted all research. Later, scientists confirmed the existence of a tunnel under the Sphinx's left paw. In 1989, a Japanese team from Waseda University, led by Professor Sakuji Yoshimura, found the tunnel sloping downward toward the Pyramid of Khafre, like an ancient subway to secrets. Yet soon after, all investigations were stopped by the Egyptian government, citing preservation concerns. The Japanese team was never allowed back, and the tunnel's purpose remains unknown. Local legends also whisper that the Sphinx is merely a surface guardian, with the real secret lying underground, a hidden chamber between its paws or within its head. Recent scans hint at structures beneath the pyramids, intensifying the haunting question, what really lies below? Egypt remains fiercely protective, guarding these monuments like the keepers of history itself. And while the debates continue, the Sphinx endures as one of humanity's greatest unsolved mysteries. The mysterious skull of Akhenaten. The civilization of ancient Egypt remains shrouded in countless mysteries, from the reasons behind the construction of the pyramids, to their true functions, to the seemingly advanced knowledge of engineering, agriculture, medicine, and astronomy that the Egyptians possessed. Their monumental achievements have led many to believe that they may have received help from beyond this world, specifically from extraterrestrial beings. This theory, often debated and popularized by shows like Ancient Aliens, gains traction as people question whether ancient Egyptian art might conceal evidence of contact with aliens. Conspiracy theorists frequently point to certain carvings and sculptures to support this idea. One of the most striking examples is the depictions of Pharaoh Akhenaten, shown with unusual features: an elongated skull, an oddly shaped body, and an abnormally large stomach. Professor Erwin Braverman of Yale School of Medicine noted that Akhenaten is often portrayed with a slender neck, an elongated head, wide hips, a large chest, and even a protruding belly reminiscent of pregnancy. A contributor on the anthropology blog of Michigan State University further observed that Akhenaten's name translates to sun disk, prompting speculation that this disk might actually refer to an unidentified flying object, UFO. If the king truly came from this disk, as the legends hint, his origins must indeed have been mysterious. Another carving of Akhenaten's family raises even more questions. His children are depicted with the same elongated heads and facial features as their father, while the adults wear headpieces, leading some to suggest these were used to hide their abnormal skull shapes. However, this does not necessarily confirm they were aliens. The royal family could have deliberately practiced artificial cranial deformation, a ritual common in many ancient cultures. Another theory suggests that Akhenaten's family may have suffered from a genetic syndrome that caused cranial deformities. Professor Braverman believes Akhenaten's elongated skull was likely the result of a genetic mutation causing craniosynostosis, a condition where the skull's fibrous joints fuse too early, preventing normal head growth. He notes that many members of Akhenaten's family, including his daughters and even two other monarchs, Queen Hatshepsut and King Tutankhamun, displayed similar cranial abnormalities consistent with craniosynostosis. Reassembling the statue of Ramesses. Ramesses II sat on the wall. Ramesses II had a great fall, and all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put him together again, but archaeologists just did. For nearly a century, a statue of Ramesses II lay retired in the Egyptian desert, looking like the world's largest broken toy. Discovered by German archaeologist Günther Roeder in 1930, the statue's lower half stood 240 kilometers south of Cairo, missing its head. For 96 years, no one knew where the upper half was. In March 2024, a joint Egyptian-American archaeological team finally located the missing upper portion near the modern city of El Ashmunain. In ancient times, this was Chemnu, a major capital during the Old Kingdom, later renamed Hermopolis Magna by the Romans, masters of Latinizing everything 2,000 years ago. As for size, the upper half measures 3.8 meters, making the complete statue over 7 meters tall. And it's not just a big block of stone with a faint face, it's Ramesses II in full pharaonic glory, wearing the royal crown, adorned with the sacred cobra, and radiating a majesty that makes Michelangelo's David look like a toy. When archaeologists first found the upper half lying face down in January 2024, they had no idea how well it had survived. It was like opening a 96-year-old time capsule, hoping it wasn't just sand and disappointment. The face of Ramesses is still so sharply carved that his distinct features are unmistakable, and traces of blue and gold paint remain a rare find on ancient statues. The next task is to reunite the two halves, with the lower portion still resting in El Ashmunain. Egyptian archaeologist Bassem Gehad has filed for permission to complete this reunion. If approved, and honestly, who would dare deny the King of Kings? Even after 3,000 years, the great pharaoh will once again stand whole. This will become one of Egypt's most spectacular statues. The Viking village of Borgund in Norway. Located on the Norwegian coastline, the village of Borgund once served as a transit hub, a place of residence, and a production center for the Vikings throughout many centuries of the Middle Ages. The traces left at Borgund are not just old stone foundations, they contain layers of overlapping culture that reflect the continuous changes of a coastal community shaped by both the environment and the historical currents of northern Europe. Archaeological excavations have unearthed tens of thousands of artifacts, including personal belongings and especially a large number of leather shoes, indicating that tanning and leatherworking were highly developed and may have supplied both local needs and interregional trade. The remains of craft workshops and storage areas found adjacent to residential quarters and close to the seaport show that Borgund was organized for flexibility and fully exploited its geographic advantages. Animal bone fragments reveal that the community here depended on the sea, with fishing playing a central role in the local economy. Alongside this, archaeological sites have also uncovered imported goods, such as glassware and metal items originating from the Baltic region, clear evidence of the tight connection between Borgund and the international trade networks of the medieval world. The disappearance of the village of Borgund resulted from a combination of environmental and social factors. The plague of the 14th century drastically reduced the population, leading to the abandonment of many coastal settlements, including Borgund itself. Analysis of plant remains from the area shows that climate changes, which made winters harsher and food sources scarcer, also undermined the stability of the local community. What remains underground at Borgund reflects the rhythm of life, social organization, production, and trading networks of a coastal Viking community where natural and historical forces were always the deciding factors for survival. The findings from Borgund not only shed light on the central role of Viking fishing villages in the broader picture of medieval northern Europe, but also help decode the processes of urbanization, decline, adaptation, and transformation that shaped communities on the threshold of modernization. The ancient mystery, worshipping civilization in Israel. Deep within the Judean region, archaeologists have discovered a temple complex dating back nearly 5,000 years. Large stone foundations, a row of upright stone columns, and monolithic altars reveal the scale and complexity of ritual organization. This architectural system emerged alongside signs of stable settlement, suggesting a society in transition from scattered agricultural groups to larger, more organized communities with increasing social stratification and centralized management. Artifacts left inside the temple include pottery and walls carved with abstract motifs linked to belief systems, showing that worship of deities played a major role in daily life. The development of the temple system not only fulfilled spiritual needs, but also contributed to the formation of power centers, where religious elites and local leaders controlled resources and coordinated labor from surrounding communities. Stratigraphic surveys show evidence of ditches, small metalworking furnaces, and footpaths connecting residential areas and ritual centers, forming a tight economic and social network. In the same period, there is evidence of early trade, such as precious stone beads sourced from beyond the Jordan Valley, suggesting that exchange extended well outside the local region. The presence of large-scale temple complexes and ritual architecture in Judea demonstrates a turning point from pre-urban to urban societies in the Near East. Centralized belief and resource control laid the groundwork for the rise of ruling classes, drove commerce, and bound small communities into broader social systems, a process that led to the emergence of early city-states and left a lasting mark on the social development of humanity at this crossroads of ancient civilizations. The underground world, from defense structures to habitation, In the course of modern history, underground structures have played not only a defensive role, but have also become an essential part of urban life. One of the most prominent examples is the underground city beneath Beijing. This system began in the 1960s at the directive of Chairman Mao Zedong, initially built as a defense against the threat of nuclear war during the Cold War. The network of shelters, extending hundreds of kilometers and connecting many urban districts, lies deep beneath the Chinese capital. However, as the threat of nuclear conflict faded, the function of these tunnels shifted. By the end of the 20th century, with rapid urbanization and rising living costs above ground, parts of these tunnels were converted into temporary living quarters for migrant workers and those unable to afford surface housing. Though residents here must cope with a lack of natural light and cramped conditions, this remains the only affordable option within a gigantic metropolis. Today, an estimated 1 million people live in tiny rooms deep beneath Beijing's surface. These spaces often lack official permits, and city authorities have repeatedly tried to regulate or restrict underground living, but the need for cheap accommodation has kept the underground city as an inseparable part of modern urban life. Beyond defensive and residential functions, the underground world holds many strange spaces of geological and archaeological significance. A prime example is the psychedelic salt mines of the Ural region, famous for swirling bands of color on rock walls and ceilings, created by the mineral carnallite. These natural patterns, formed over millions of years, create a unique and mysterious environment deep underground. Despite their geological and aesthetic value, access to these salt mines is strictly limited due to safety and legal concerns. The coexistence of man-made underground structures and natural subterranean wonders not only reflects humanity's adaptability to social and environmental changes, but also opens up new avenues for research into the relationship between underground space and modern ecology. Over time, these second cities bear the marks of history, survival, and the human drive to push the material limits of society. Archaeology and ancient heritage. In the field of archaeology and the study of ancient heritage, every discovery sheds new light on the evolutionary history and cultural life of civilizations that once existed on Earth. One of the outstanding sites is the Melle fossil deposit in Germany, recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site for its exceptional scientific value. Melle preserves nearly intact layers of Eocene period fauna and flora. Over tens of millions of years, sedimentation has kept thousands of fossil specimens from mammals, reptiles, birds, and fish to insects and plants. These fossils offer detailed insights into the Eocene ecosystem, a time when Earth's climate was warmer than today, and serve as a basis for scientists to trace the origins and evolutionary changes in biodiversity across geological eras. From small mammal fossils and fish to traces of predators, the entire Melle site acts as a natural archive for deciphering evolutionary history and the shifts in climate and the biosphere from almost 50 million years ago. Beyond fossil finds, archaeology opens up many mysteries linked to ancient cultures. The excavation of the first Philistine cemetery at Ashkelon, Israel, marked a major milestone in research on the people depicted in the Bible as the warriors of Goliath. Previously, knowledge of Philistine customs, beliefs, and society was very limited. But newly discovered graves with varied burial methods, including pottery, jewelry, weapons, and even cremation, have greatly expanded our understanding of their social systems, religion, and concepts of death. These artifacts help clarify the origins and connections of the Philistines with other ancient Mediterranean cultures, broadening the scope of historical comparison in the region. Archaeology also touches the myths and legends associated with historic sites. Bala Fort in Oman is a typical example, not only a solid military structure for desert tribes, but also the center of countless folktales about magic, spirits, and mysterious phenomena. Local legends speak of supernatural events, the appearance of sorcerers, and even sacred objects existing within the ancient walls. These stories enrich the cultural memory associated with the site, reflecting the complex relationship between people, faith, and the supernatural in the development of native communities. With every find, archaeological heritage sites such as the Melle fossil pit, the Philistine cemetery, or Bala Fort play roles beyond being physical evidence of history. They expand our understanding of biological evolution, the rise and transformation of ancient cultures, and the symbolic and spiritual aspects that continue to shape modern societies. Atlantis in Islamic legend and sand. Buried civilizations. The city of Iram, also known as Ubar, is mentioned in the Quran as a city of lofty towers that once flourished in the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula. The story of Iram is tied to the ancient tribe of Ad, said to have strayed from the path of righteousness and thus suffered divine punishment. The city was buried beneath the sands in a disaster said to last 7 nights and 8 days. Ancient Arabic texts and epics describe a land of abundant water and date palms, spurring generations of scholars to search for the true location of this lost city. By the late 20th century, a combination of textual research, fieldwork, and remote sensing led scientists to follow traces of old caravan routes to pinpoint the probable site of Iram. Ruins found in the Rub al-Khali region, famous for its ever-shifting sand dunes, include stone foundations, remains of ancient wells, and fragments of household goods, evidence that a major urban center once thrived here, dominating trade and controlling trans-desert routes. Archaeologists have noted that the city's rapid burial was caused by both sand accumulation and the collapse of its groundwater system, erasing it from local memory except for scattered references in epic poetry and religious scripture. Some theories suggest Iram was a hub for the transport of frankincense, spices, and luxury goods between East and West throughout antiquity. Its burial marked the end of a major trade network that lasted for centuries. The link between Iram and the Atlantis legend lies not only in the parallel tales of sudden prosperity and swift downfall, but also in the theme of extreme natural forces wiping out an entire society, leaving ruins beneath the sands and within the fabric of cultural and religious memory. Some researchers believe that stories of sand-buried cities like Iram spread along ancient trade routes, blending with Mediterranean tales and inspiring Plato's vision of Atlantis. Today, the ruins of Iram in Arabia are seen as evidence of environmental upheaval and its social consequences, as well as a connecting point between ancient civilizations from east to west, cautionary tales about the limits of development and the enduring power of nature. Homo boduensis. Homo boduensis is one of the newest branches of ancient humans identified through the analysis of skulls found in Ethiopia, dating back about 500,000 years to the Middle Pleistocene. This discovery fills a key gap in what anthropologists call the muddle in the middle, a complex evolutionary period in Africa and Eurasia, when various Homo branches emerged and developed in parallel. The Bodo skull displays many intermediate features, not entirely belonging to the older Homo erectus, but not yet showing the modern characteristics of Homo sapiens. Its anatomy includes a large brain case, low forehead, broad face, and robust jaws, reflecting adaptation to the harsh and fluctuating African climate of that era. The emergence of Homo boduensis helps close gaps in our understanding of the transition from ancient hominins to modern human lines and reveals the remarkable diversity of hominids in Africa at the same time Neanderthals inhabited Europe and Denisovans lived in Asia. The greatest challenge facing paleoanthropology remains the limited number of fossil samples, the scattered nature of finds, and the many areas still left unexcavated. Thanks to modern genetic analysis, researchers are beginning to clarify the position of Homo boduensis in the evolutionary tree, but the question of its role in the emergence of Homo sapiens is still being unraveled. The coexistence of many human species interacting and possibly interbreeding created a complex evolutionary picture, raising the possibility that many ancient human genetic lines remain undiscovered in modern DNA. The discovery of Homo boduensis not only enriches our knowledge of how modern humans appeared, but also underscores the importance of the Horn of Africa as a major evolutionary center for humanity during the Pleistocene. Each fossil found here helps rewrite the story of human evolution, bringing us closer to the answer of Homo sapiens' true origins and our place in the broader web of life. The Kingdom of Mitanni. The Mitanni Kingdom once controlled a vast territory stretching from the Tigris to the Euphrates, playing a central role in the balance of power in the Middle East after ancient Babylon. In the 16th to 13th centuries BCE, Mitanni emerged as a state structured as a tribal alliance, using the Hurrian language and building complex relationships with major empires like Egypt, Babylon, and the Hittites. Its strategic location allowed Mitanni to maintain relative independence among great powers, while also becoming the focus of regional conflicts and alliances. Mitanni's greatest achievements included the development of horse-drawn chariot warfare, expertise in bronze weaponry, and a wide-reaching diplomatic network clearly seen in the Amarna letters, a trove of diplomatic correspondence between ancient Middle Eastern states. Egyptian, Hittite, and Babylonian sources all mention Mitanni as a power frequently involved in alliances and wars, sometimes as an intermediary or ally, sometimes as a target for invasion. By the late 14th century BCE, Mitanni began to decline, weakened by internal disputes, fractured power, and pressure from neighboring empires. Ultimately, Assyria launched massive military campaigns that destroyed Mitanni's cities and administrative structures. Political, religious, and economic centers were razed, the Hurrian elite were dispersed or assimilated, and Mitanni culture faded from the region's political map. Today, much of what we know about Mitanni comes from scattered foreign documents and archaeological fragments from cities like Washukani, whose exact location remains uncertain. Excavations yield only partial clues about architecture, religious rituals, and communal life, not enough to fully reconstruct a once influential kingdom. The ruins of Mitanni are a testament to the rapid rise and fall of ancient Middle Eastern civilizations amid war, political turmoil, and resource competition, and they raise important questions about the fate of alliance-based states when confronted by centralized empires in human history. The Fontenelle Burial Cave in Naples. The Fontenelle Burial Cave in Naples stands as a unique medieval European heritage site, blending collective burial practices with the creation of a cultural and spiritual space that endured for centuries. Originally, this cave was used as an emergency solution when traditional cemeteries became overwhelmed during times of plague and disaster. Tens of thousands of bodies, most victims of plague and demographic crises, were moved here, creating one of the largest collections of human remains in southern Europe. The natural cave, combined with earlier quarrying, created a vast underground space ideal for housing enormous numbers of remains. Over time, burial customs and management of the dead evolved into unique rituals, with the local community forming a special bond with souls who had not received proper burial rites. For generations, Neapolitans believed that the presence of these remains held spiritual significance, a bridge between the living and the dead, and inspired folk religious practices such as prayer or the making of wishes. The practice of organizing, naming, and even adopting anonymous skulls in the Fontenelle Cave became a remarkable social and cultural phenomenon that continued into the 19th century. Community interest, along with the site's opening to the public at the end of the 19th century, transformed it into a collective memorial, entwined with the historical memory and urban identity of Naples. Today, the Fontenelle Cave is not only a distinctive archaeological site, but also recognized as part of the region's intangible heritage of communal belief. Its rituals, commemorations, and ongoing research continue to attract the interest of scholars, religious historians, and visitors alike, confirming the Fontenelle's place in the broader narrative of European social and spiritual history. The Anunnaki. One of humanity's greatest mysteries is this: where did we come from, and who was the first to shape us into what we are today? When you trace the course of history and examine the archaeological evidence, you'll see that the earliest civilizations all began in Mesopotamia. But how did that beginning truly unfold? What caused those wandering tribes to suddenly build cities with towering walls, invent mathematics, writing, and agriculture, then learn to bend nature itself to their will? And what happened even before all of that? There is a story that says, hundreds of thousands of years ago, or perhaps even farther back, somewhere in the dense blackness of space, there was a planet called Nibiru, not an ordinary rock drifting through the void. This planet followed an orbit that took thousands of years to complete. On it lived an advanced species known as the Anunnaki, but they were not the friendly neighborhood aliens you might imagine. Legends say they faced a critical problem on their home world. Their atmosphere was being destroyed, and the only thing that could save it was gold. So they turned their gaze to our beautiful Earth, a place where gold filled the mountains and lined the rivers. They descended, set up camps, and began mining. But don't think for a second that they were willing to toil in the dirt themselves. They were far too advanced, far too refined, and had no interest in manual labor. That was when two leaders of the Anunnaki, Enki and Ninmah, stepped in. They observed the native creatures, our primitive ancestors, and came up with an idea that was anything but pleasant. They are said to have begun tampering with DNA, blending their genetic code with that of ancient apes. The result was us modern humans, suspected to be an artificial creation, designed as a massive labor force for mining gold. If this story is to be believed, our very existence is tied to the climate crisis of an alien species. They are said to have ruled over Earth for a time, these Anunnaki kings, before eventually leaving, abandoning us on a world they had already altered in strange and profound ways. It's a wild story, one that's enough to make you look at human history through an entirely different lens. The pre-Adamic race. When viewed through the lens of religion, the Bible states that Adam was the first man, and many cultures share the belief that a divine being shaped the first human in their own image, beginning the lineage of mankind. But there is another theory, known as the pre-Adamic race. In simple terms, it suggests that intelligent beings once lived on Earth long before Adam ever appeared. What's intriguing is that this theory doesn't necessarily claim those beings looked like us, only that they were as intelligent as modern humans. They had their own civilization, they lived on Earth, but Adam was the first official human, the origin of our lineage. Adam was entirely different from any creature that had come before. It sounds outrageous, yet this theory has existed for at least 2,000 years. It was first recorded in 170 AD, when an Egyptian pagan named Apollonius debated a Christian named Theophilus of Antioch. This was no mere fireside chat. The theory spread widely throughout the Roman Empire, to the point where Emperor Julian the Apostate abandoned Christianity and returned to ancient pagan beliefs. He argued that multiple first humans were created, calling this idea the multi-Adam theory. Moving forward through the centuries, by the early Islamic period around the year 900, there was a common belief that humans were not Earth's first intelligent inhabitants. They claimed that a race called the Jinn, the pre-Adamic race, had ruled the planet for at least 50,000 years. Such ideas were widespread, even if not always officially recognized. By the 10th century, these views were condemned as heresy, and the consequences were severe. Later, the Italian philosopher Giordano Bruno reignited the theory in 1591. Observing the diversity of human races around the world, he argued that it was impossible for Jews and Ethiopians to share the same ancestor. Bruno believed that God had created multiple Adams, each giving rise to different races, some descending from ancient pre-Adamic groups. Seen this way, Adam can still be regarded as the first of our kind, modern humans. But the theory also implies that he was not the only one, nor the first intelligent being ever to walk this earth. Life under the mad pharaoh. Life under the reign of the unusual pharaoh was a turbulent chapter in ancient Egyptian history. This pharaoh ruled 3,000 years ago, alongside Queen Nefertiti, as the father of Meritaten and the king of Tutankhamun. One morning, he simply decided to build an entirely new city from scratch and proclaimed the rise of a new god, one that all of Egypt would be forced to worship. This pharaoh didn't just rewrite the script of religion, he turned the kingdom upside down. He shut down the houses of the gods, as if cancelling a television program, replacing them all with the sole worship of the sun, god Aten. Egypt, once a land of many gods, became a nation of one. Akhenaten wanted a city solely for his god, ordering its construction and forcing the people of other cities to pack up and move. Today, archaeologists have uncovered the remains of one of these abandoned cities near Luxor, alongside famous monuments such as the Colossi of Memnon. The city was once called Saud Aten, a lively suburb where children played in the streets, bread baked in ovens, and blacksmiths worked tirelessly. But one day, the pharaoh's soldiers arrived, ordering everyone to leave immediately. There was no farewell feast, no time to pack. Many abandoned their leatherwork and fled out of fear of the guards' punishment. Within the ruins, archaeologists discovered an ancient town hall, possibly even a police station. Even more fascinating was an invention far ahead of its time. Many houses in Sudaten had built-in bathrooms where people could bathe cleanly instead of going to the river or pouring water over their heads. Meanwhile, at the same time in Europe, people were still battling plagues caused by poor sanitation. There were also mysteries that defied explanation. Archaeologist Zahi Hawass was puzzled to find a gold-wrapped fish, buried like one of Egypt's strangest mummies. Someone had taken an ordinary fish and covered it in gold. But the true reason remains unknown. Experts also uncovered as many as 500 statues of the goddess Sekhmet, the fearsome deity of war and healing, once worshipped across Egypt. When Aten became the sole god, the followers of Sekhmet likely abandoned these statues against their will. Why did Akhenaten suddenly change religion so drastically? According to Yasmin El-Shazli, deputy director of the American Research Center in Egypt, Akhenaten was not the first to consider solar worship. His father, Amenhotep III, had already emphasized solar theology. Akhenaten simply pushed it to the extreme, like a child determined to claim a religion as his own. In the end, Akhenaten built a new capital for the followers of Aten, the city of Tel El Amarna, about 200 miles south of Cairo. He moved there with Queen Nefertiti, who likely never anticipated this Atenized version of the new dynasty. At first, things seemed fine, but chaos soon followed. After Akhenaten's death, King Tutankhamun tried to revive the city of Aten, but no one wanted to stay there, and it was quickly abandoned. The young king had to restore order, return the capital to Thebes, reinstate the old polytheistic system, and erase Akhenaten's legacy from Egyptian memory. The temples of Aten were destroyed. Akhenaten's name was chiseled off monuments, and his new religion was thrown into oblivion. Today, archaeologists have 2 abandoned cities to study evidence that ancient Egypt was not just pyramids and perfume, but also sudden migrations, religious rebranding, and a pharaoh whose ambition changed an entire nation. Akhenaten forced his people to leave their homes, shattered traditional religion, and may have driven the economy into crisis, all by the sheer will and ambition of one man. Dinosaurs. When dinosaurs ruled the earth, could they have built a civilization of their own? The question sounds absurd, but there is a theory suggesting that technologically advanced dinosaurs might have mined asteroids and accidentally dragged a massive meteor down onto Earth, triggering their own extinction. Author and scientist Peter Brannan posed an intriguing idea. He asked, what if dinosaurs didn't just dominate Earth with teeth and claws, but also with computers and rocket fuel? In other words, dinosaurs with advanced technology. 66 million years ago, perhaps a lab coat wearing T-Rex was roaring warnings to its friends as a 6-mile-wide asteroid hurtled down like an Amazon Prime delivery thrown over a gate. It sounds insane, but what if it were true? Brannan doesn't claim there was a Jurassic Silicon Valley or velociraptors building nuclear bombs. The issue is time, geological time, and how astonishingly brief humanity's existence is compared to Earth's history. According to Brannan, if there ever was a dinosaur, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, who launched a dinosaur space program and miscalculated an asteroid's trajectory, wiping out their species, there would be no trace left today. There might have once been hyper-intelligent lizard kings living through their own space age, and now not a single shred of evidence remains. Earth is ruthless in erasing traces faster than waves washing away a sand castle. The planet can reset everything in the blink of an eye. Even if a dinosaur civilization ended in nuclear war, there would likely be nothing left. The longest-lived radioactive isotope from nuclear bombs lasts only about 16 million years. No matter how many apocalypses occurred, Earth would have swallowed them all, which means that even if there had been a Triassic-era Manhattan Project, we would never know. Brannan isn't just playing with science fiction. He's making a point about humanity. We've altered Earth dramatically in just a few thousand years with plastic waste, concrete, and fossil fuels everywhere. Yet in the geological timeline, our dominance is only a blink. Future archaeologists, or perhaps artificial intelligence, may have no idea we ever existed, just as we know nothing about the imagined lunar bases of our scaly predecessors. If humanity vanished right now, and someday giant intelligent tardigrades evolved their own civilization, they too would find no trace of us, not even the faintest radioactive dust from our nuclear tests. Dinosaurs may have ruled Earth long before God shaped Adam from clay and fashioned his wife from a rib. Not just dinosaurs, but countless other species as well. Earth has existed long enough to host countless civilizations that may have risen and vanished every few million years, leaving no one to remember them. Ancient ruins on Mars. Let's not beat around the bush. What if there were once cities on Mars? Not the gleaming futuristic hotels promised in science fiction, but ancient structures buried under red sands, abandoned millions of years ago by a civilization older than humanity itself. More and more images sent back from Mars show unusual geometric shapes, and people are starting to get truly excited. Are these ruins, or just natural formations? Carl Sagan once said, "The first sign of intelligent life on Earth is the appearance of structures with clear geometry." He was talking about straight lines, right angles, symmetry marks of intention, not random acts of nature. Looking back at Mars, satellites and rovers have spent years sending back images of strange mountain ridges, rectangular patterns, and intersecting lines buried in the dust. One of the most famous examples is what NASA calls the Inca City. This cluster of intersecting ridges in Mars' southern pole looked so architectural that when Mariner 9 discovered it in 1972, it earned the nickname instantly. For over 50 years, the Inca city on Mars has fascinated scientists. Later, the Mars Global Surveyor captured sharper images of the same region, and many believe they highlight the complexity of its design even further. The clearer images didn't dismiss the theory, they only made the city appear more detailed. There are also mysterious formations in Augie Roups and Arabia Terra regions, where square patterns and block-like shapes seem to hint at an artificial hand. NASA usually labels these as natural chaos, but skeptics argue that when geometry repeats at a certain scale, it's no longer random. Remember, Mars wasn't always the dry, frozen dust ball we see today. Billions of years ago, it had rivers, lakes, even seas. Its atmosphere was thicker, and in many ways, Mars once looked eerily like Earth. Recent studies confirm this. A team from the Planetary Science Institute in Tucson, Arizona, discovered that shallow lakes on Mars might once have supported life. These basins, once covered by lava and later flooded, provided ideal conditions, temperature, pressure, and nutrients for bacteria to thrive for hundreds of millions of years. And that's not all. NASA has detected unusual spikes in methane on Mars. This is significant because on Earth, 90% of atmospheric methane comes from living organisms. Rovers have also found useful nitrogen essential for DNA and RNA. Here's the bombshell. Dr. John Brandenburg, a plasma physicist, publicly proposed one of the boldest theories yet. He claims that Mars once hosted not just life, but entire civilizations. According to him, uranium and thorium traces on Mars are evidence of two ancient nuclear explosions. But these weren't natural accidents, they were acts of war. His theory suggests that Martian civilizations were annihilated in a planet-wide genocide carried out by an unknown extraterrestrial force. It's a shocking claim, but Brandenburg argues that the elemental evidence, coupled with the absence of life today, points to a catastrophe, possibly nuclear, that wiped everything out. And if survivors of that nuclear apocalypse escaped to Earth, could they be the origin of humanity? If so, it would certainly leave many creationists baffled. The Stargate beneath the pyramids, under the scorching sun of the Giza Desert, just beyond the shadow of the Eternal Pyramids, something unusual stirs beneath the sand. At first, archaeologists were not searching for a Stargate. They were simply conducting routine surveys with modern equipment, hoping to uncover buried tombs or remnants of Egypt's ancient royal families. But what they found instead was an L-shaped structure, sharply defined, lying nearly 2 meters beneath the pyramid complex, and deeper still, a mysterious anomaly, a large hollow space, possibly a Stargate, built by a civilization older than the pyramids themselves. Using ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity measurements, this underground structure baffled scientists, stirring both curiosity and unease. According to a recent study by Motoyuki Sato of Tohoku University, published in Archaeological Prospection, this L-shaped formation lies within Giza's Western Cemetery, a site known for royal tombs, yet never fully excavated. Beneath this structure lies a cavity 5 to 10 meters deep, showing an unusually high electrical resistance, suggesting a large air pocket or hollow chamber. In other words, this is not a natural formation, nor a coincidence, and cannot be explained by sand and rock alone. What intrigued researchers even more was the suggestion that the L-shaped feature might be an entrance, a gateway, intentionally carved thousands of years ago. But where does it lead? That remains the tantalizing question. Scientists only hint that the tunnel may connect to a massive underground structure, unlike anything ever found in the area. This is not just a fleeting radar signal. It is a cold, meticulously designed void, hidden with care, seemingly never meant for the eyes of satellites and modern technology. You might think this is exaggerated. Egypt is full of hidden chambers under its pyramids. True, but what sets this anomaly apart is its location. It isn't directly beneath a pyramid, but in a blank stretch of desert with no visible ruins, forgotten for centuries. Beneath the sand lies a hollow deliberately concealed, as if someone wanted this place erased from memory. Rumors claim this isn't a tomb at all, but something else, a sealed chamber, a corridor to another world, a gateway to an unknown dimension. If it truly is a Stargate, ancient Egyptian myths immediately gain new significance. Imagine a passageway to another realm. In the Egyptian worldview, The afterlife was not merely poetic imagery, but a vast, complex dimension where the towering pyramids above ground were only the visible tip. Secrets always lay beneath. Ancient texts describe cosmic gates, underworld journeys, and celestial pathways reserved for pharaohs and gods. So when you hear of an anomaly that defies electrical scans, located near royal tombs, you can't help but wonder, was this place built solely for burial, or was it once used to travel between worlds? For now, the mystery lies buried beneath thick layers of sand. Ground-penetrating radar shows only so much. The real answer remains locked in the untouched void. Excavation efforts have begun, but digging near the Great Pyramids is no simple task. Permits, politics, and preservation all slow the process. Sooner or later, however, someone will open that door, and when that day comes, you'll definitely hear about it. John Glenn's mysterious fireflies. On February 20th, 1962, astronaut John Glenn became the first American to orbit Earth in the cramped Friendship 7 capsule, hurtling through space at 17,000 miles per hour. While floating in orbit, Glenn witnessed something no one had ever seen before, a strange, glowing cloud surrounding his spacecraft, like an illusion brought to life. These tiny, luminous particles shimmered with life, moving around the capsule like a swarm of mysterious creatures. Glenn called them fireflies. During his radio transmissions that day, he described them as resembling tiny stars, swirling around the spacecraft in a rain of fireflies before drifting away silently. On the ground, NASA engineers held their breath, listening to every word. No one could immediately explain the phenomenon. Speculation spread quickly. Were these lights a sign of a serious malfunction? Was the capsule breaking apart, or was there an issue with the heat shield? If so, Glenn might have become the first American to die in space. Yet the glowing particles seemed almost alive. They danced, floated around the capsule, creating a spectacle that felt straight out of a science fiction movie amid the vastness of space. Glenn remained calm, carefully observing and recording their distance, speed, and how they never collided with the spacecraft, but simply drifted like glowing plankton in a black ocean of zero gravity. He further reported to Mission Control that the fireflies swirled around, gliding past the windows, glowing brightly in unison. They spaced themselves about 6 feet apart, forming a ribbon beneath the capsule. This phenomenon was no mere dust or debris. It resembled a swarm of tiny celestial beings quietly escorting Glenn through space. After 3 orbits, Glenn returned safely, carrying with him an experience he would never forget. Later, astronaut Scott Carpenter performed a similar flight on Aurora 7 and suggested that what Glenn saw were frozen bits of condensation flaking off the capsule when lightly tapped. NASA quickly accepted this explanation, as if eager to close the case on an unanswered mystery. Yet many remain unconvinced. Were those strange lights really just frozen condensation, or something far more mysterious, something science still cannot explain? That question lingers, quietly accompanying humanity's history of space exploration. The missing link. Despite our superior brains, space travel, and high-speed Wi-Fi, the true origin of humanity remains one of the biggest unanswered questions, one we still struggle to solve. A recent review published in Science stirred controversy. After decades of fossil hunting and DNA analysis, scientists still cannot agree on who or what our last common ancestor with apes was. As Sergio Almecija, senior researcher at the American Museum of Natural History and lead author of the study, bluntly stated, "When you look at the story of human origins, it's a mess. Nobody agrees on anything. In simpler terms, we can shrug and admit, no one knows exactly how humans came to be." Setting aside theories of dinosaur civilizations or Martian ancestors, let's focus on what modern science understands about evolution. Humans are believed to have split from the chimpanzee lineage between 9.3 and 6.5 million years ago. Today, our closest relatives are chimpanzees and bonobos. We share 99% of our genes with these hairy cousins. But how did we become the species that builds skyscrapers, argues on the internet, and sends robots to Mars? Hidden within the past 10 million years is the missing link, the creature that bridges humans with their ape ancestors. Some scientists believe this link was a chimpanzee-like being that walked on its knuckles. Others think it resembled the extinct Miocene apes, strange and diverse creatures unlike any ape alive today. Sergio's research suggests modern scientists are still overlooking something major. He proposes that the missing link may have had unique characteristics not reflected in any fossils we've found so far. Perhaps somewhere, there once existed a half-human, half-ape creature no one has yet discovered. Our true ancestor might have walked, climbed, and moved in ways scientists have never even imagined. Without the fossil of this missing link, the origin of humanity will remain a colossal question mark. The alien ship beneath the sea. More than a decade ago, two treasure hunters exploring the cold, murky waters of the Baltic Sea stumbled upon something that could change everything we think we know about this planet, or at least about what once visited it. What they found was an anomaly over 60 feet wide, resting at a depth of nearly 300 feet. Round, strange, and seemingly unnatural, it bore an uncanny resemblance to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. This discovery, later called the Baltic Sea Anomaly, became one of the most persistent mysteries in modern UFO history. Some claim it's just a natural rock formation left over from the Ice Age, but the discoverers, along with many others, believe it's the wreckage of highly advanced technology, possibly extraterrestrial, that crashed onto Earth 140,000 years ago. If one day we discover that humanity's origin stems from an interstellar traffic accident, would you believe it? What if this ship was once piloted by beings from a distant star system, beings who became stranded on Earth and turned into the first Adam and Eve? The object was first detected in June 2011. Swedish divers Peter Lindberg and Dennis Osberg of the Ocean X team were searching for a shipwreck in the northern Baltic Sea when their sonar picked up something unusual. In an interview, Osberg said, "We were really surprised and confused." That might have been an understatement. The team was so concerned that they kept the discovery secret for some time they didn't want to spark global panic. Subsequent dives, samples, rumors, and an ever-growing list of strange details followed, such as step-like features seemingly carved into the object's surface, resembling an entrance, or a second nearby object that also appeared artificial, possibly another craft or a broken piece of the original mothership. According to diver Stefan Hogborn, all of the team's electronic devices suddenly failed when approaching the object directly. Sonar, cameras, even satellite phones stopped working, but moved just a few hundred feet away, and everything functioned normally. In other words, the object emitted something, an electromagnetic field that no one expects from ancient frozen rocks. Theories have poured in since 2011. Some believe it's an ancient alien spacecraft. Others think it's the remains of a secret World War II anti-submarine device, though if so, it would have to be so classified that no records exist. More radical ideas suggest it could be part of a lost underwater city, an alien beacon, or an artifact from a forgotten pre-human civilization. Yet the biggest mystery is this: why doesn't anyone seem eager to investigate it thoroughly? Follow-up expeditions were minimal, analyses inconclusive, and questions remain unanswered. The origins of the Hyksos. For a long time, researchers believed that the Hyksos, a mysterious dynasty that ruled Egypt from 1638 BCE to 1530 BCE, were foreign invaders who seized power in the land of the pharaohs. However, recent studies suggest that this enigmatic group may have actually originated from within Egypt itself. A new chemical analysis of tooth enamel collected from Hyksos graves revealed that the so-called first foreigners to rule Egypt had, in fact, been living there for generations before they rose to power. Written records about the Hyksos are scarce. Manetho, a priest who lived under the Ptolemaic dynasty in the 3rd century BCE long after the Hyksos were overthrown, claimed they had invaded Egypt from the northeast after the collapse of the Middle Kingdom around 1650 BCE, a time marked by chaos and instability. Some hieroglyphs also mention the Hyksos conquest and their dynasty, but the authenticity of these accounts is heavily debated, as later dynasties often destroyed records and spread propaganda about their predecessors, forever associating the Hyksos with disorder. Archaeological excavations at Avaris, the Hyksos capital, indicate that they originated from the Near East. According to Chris Stantis, the lead author of the study, the non-Egyptian burial practices found there are especially noteworthy. Men were often buried with bronze weapons and lacked scarabs or amulets typical of Egyptian tradition. While the Hyksos were indeed an ethnically distinct group that experienced multiple waves of migration into Egypt, enamel samples from most of the men tested suggest they had been settled in the region long before the Hyksos came to power. Furthermore, many of the remains belonged to women, pointing to a diverse origin and highlighting the significant role women played in their migration. These findings challenge the traditional narrative that the Hyksos were simply an invading army and call for a deeper understanding of their integration into Egyptian society. Aliens in Africa. It was a hot, dusty day in the heart of Tanzania, the kind of heat that makes even the lizards too lazy to blink. In the Swaga Swaga Game Reserve, an archaeological team stumbled upon something that made them rub their eyes in disbelief. They had discovered 52 ancient rock shelters in the area, but one site was unlike any other. This cave, known as Amaki 4, featured wall paintings that could only be described as alien. On its rock surface were 3 figures with slender bodies and heads, so disproportionately large they looked as if they had stepped out of a science fiction show like Deep Space Nine. The discovery was led by Dr. Maciej Grzelczyk from a Polish university, an Indiana Jones figure in the world of prehistoric art. He believes these paintings may hold the key to understanding similar artworks found across Tanzania, or perhaps they are remnants of a forgotten ancient civilization. He doesn't make definitive claims, only that they might be. Whoever painted these images seemed to have encountered strange beings that looked as though they came from the film Coneheads. Unfortunately, no one knows how old the paintings are. They could be hundreds or even thousands of years old. Based on their style, pigments, and the absence of depictions of cattle, researchers believe they date back to the hunter-gatherer period, long before humans domesticated animals. Imagine the prehistoric world perhaps more than 5,000 years ago. And it doesn't end there. Similar alien-like figures also appear in 2 nearby caves, Kolo B1 and Kolo B2. These figures are connected by a mysterious line, almost like an ancient cosmic conga dance, stretching across the cave walls. The Fortress of Quap. The Fortress of Quap is a lost mountaintop city in northern Peru, rivaling the grandeur of Machu Picchu. Some even say that during its golden age, Quap was far more breathtaking. Perched 2,700 meters above sea level, the city overlooked vast valleys and cloud forests that stretched endlessly to the horizon. The entire city covered an area of about 15 hectares, scattered with the remains of civic buildings, temples, military structures, and countless other constructions. Most of what stands today are crumbling stone foundations, but in its prime, Quap must have looked like something out of a legend. Archaeologists have unearthed more than 420 circular stone houses, evidence that this truly was a city in the clouds. The central fortress boasted walls that rose over 18 meters high, turning Quap into a literal castle in the sky. It served as the political center of the Chachapoya culture, a mysterious civilization that thrived around 900 CE. For 5 centuries, they flourished until the Spanish conquered South America in the 16th century. The Mount of Temptation. The Mount of Temptation towers over the ancient city of Jericho in Palestine, a place of profound religious significance since the earliest days of Christianity. This mountain is considered sacred ground. Near its summit, almost 300 meters above sea level, stands the Greek Orthodox Monastery of Temptation, clinging to the cliffs with sweeping views of Jericho and the vast Jordan Valley. The oldest parts of the monastery date back to the 6th century CE. Visiting it feels like stepping into a story from the New Testament. But what makes the Mount of Temptation so important? Christians believe this is the very place where Jesus was tempted by Satan, who urged him to turn away from God, as described in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It was from this mountain that Satan promised Jesus ultimate power over all earthly kingdoms. After enduring this trial, Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights in a cave. The mystical monastery was later built directly above this cave. 2 churches were originally constructed on the mountain by Crusaders nearly 1,000 years ago. They built one directly into the cave itself, halfway up the cliff. Nearly 900 years later, in 1874, the land was purchased by the Orthodox Church. They built a modern monastery around the ancient chapel, marking the very stone where Jesus is believed to have meditated for 40 unmoving days. Misfat al-Abriyan. The mysterious mud brick village of Misfat al-Abriyan in Oman feels like something out of legend. Hidden deep within the Hajar Mountains, it retains a prehistoric aura even today. The region is sparsely populated, with valleys full of palm trees, red rock cliffs, and plateaus stretching to the horizon. Here, under the shadow of Jebel Shams and across the winding valley known as the Grand Canyon of Oman, lies an abandoned ancient community nestled among dark rocks and deep crevices. Misfat al-Abriyan was built about 300 years ago as an oasis town. Its first residents were members of the Al-Abri tribe of Oman. They carved the city directly into the mountainside, transforming the barren land into a lush, mini Babylon amid the harsh desert. The tribe cleverly diverted water from the oasis through the town using a sophisticated irrigation system. They built stone channels through the mountains, creating a paradise where there had once been only deathly desert. Beyond the mud houses, crystal-clear pools, terraced gardens, and desert shrubs flourished, while birds sang year-round. The entire village overflowed with mango, banana, pomegranate, papaya, orange, and date trees. Misfat al-Abrian looked like it came straight from an Arabian folktale. Sadly, the village was recently abandoned as residents moved to modern houses closer to larger cities. Today, this oasis stands as a remote, silent tourist destination. Sigiriya. Sigiriya is an ancient city in Sri Lanka built atop a massive column of rock known as the Lion Rock. Rising 180 meters above the ground, it has stood proudly for over 1,500 years. King Kashyapa chose the summit as the site for his impregnable palace during his reign from 477 to 495 CE. Sigiriya was hidden deep within the jungle, perched so high that the king believed no one could ever conquer it. But for Kashyapa, his Sky City was not as invincible as he had hoped. His half-brother, Moggallana, returned from India with an army to reclaim the throne Kashyapa had seized after murdering their father. In 495, Kashyapa's forces deserted him on the battlefield, forcing him to take his own life with his sword. Sigiriya was abandoned, the capital was moved back to Anuradhapura, and the site was transformed into a Buddhist monastery. The monastery lasted another 1,000 years before disappearing from history and falling into complete obscurity. It wasn't until British officer Jonathan Forbes rediscovered it in 1831 that Sigiriya returned to the world's attention. For Forbes and his team, it must have felt like an extraordinary find. The only way up to the city is to climb the rock face and pass through a colossal gateway shaped like a lion. Even the entrance alone feels like something out of myth, a gigantic stone beast through whose legs you must pass to reach the Sky City. Sadly, today only one lion's paw remains: the sacred cave of Balamkanche. Balamkanche is a sacred Mayan cave located near the jungle city of Chichen Itza. It was first discovered in 1905 when explorers hacked their way through dense vegetation to reach the entrance. It wasn't until 1959 that archaeologists uncovered a series of secret tunnels within this underground sanctuary. That was when they realized just how significant the cave was to the Maya. The cave and its passageways were dedicated to Chak, the Mayan rain god, revered as the giver of life. Chak was so important that for centuries the Maya performed offerings and sacrifices in the depths of the cave to honor him. Today, Balamkanche is considered one of the most important underground archaeological sites in the world. It stretches over 2 kilometers and plunges 10 meters beneath the surface, leading into what feels like a nightmare at the bottom of the underworld. The site seems pulled straight from Mayan mythology, where caves like Balamkanche were viewed as gateways to the afterlife, much like Hades in Greek myth. The Portuguese city consumed by the Amazon rainforest. In the Amazonian region of Rondônia, modern archaeological research has employed LIDAR scanning technology to identify the remains of an 18th-century Portuguese settlement, once thriving and now completely swallowed by the tropical jungle. This area was once part of a network of colonial outposts established by Portugal to control trade routes and exploit the natural resources of inland South America. Beneath the forest canopy, stone structures, foundations, and ditches have been found, arranged in a clear geometric layout that reflects the process of European-style planning imposed on the native tropical environment. This evidence allows for the reconstruction of the activities of a migrant community, which included Europeans, enslaved Africans, and local populations, all operating within a large-scale production and resource extraction system that lasted for decades. Portuguese settlement in the Amazon took place against the backdrop of colonial rivalry among European empires and was also a time of major economic and demographic shifts, marked by the emergence of slavery and the exploitation of native resources for global trade. However, harsh climate conditions, slave revolts, and conflicts with indigenous groups led to the abandonment of many settlements, which were quickly reclaimed by nature. Today, LIDAR technology helps reconstruct the historical panorama of a land that witnessed the convergence of many peoples, clarifying aspects rarely recorded in official documents about the colonial period of the Amazon. Excavation results allow deeper study of social structures, the role of slave labor, and the interaction between people and the rainforest, providing new data on South American history as European settlement centers formed on this continent. The ancient tavern. In southern France, archaeologists have uncovered an ancient tavern over 2,100 years old, a drinking hall straight out of myth. Dating to the 1st century BCE, it may be one of the earliest taverns ever found in the Western Mediterranean. This mysterious site lies near the ancient town of Latara, which flourished during the Roman conquest. The people of Latara were simple farmers until the Romans arrived, bringing new trades, including that of tavern keeping. When the excavation began, the team initially thought they had found an ancient bakery. Over 5 years of digging revealed ovens, grain mills inside the building, and all the tools for making flatbread. But it was the charcoal hearth, the earthen benches, and fish bones scattered across the kitchen floor that told the real story. This was a true tavern, the kind you'd see in a fantasy film. Here, locals once gathered to drink, sing, and feast on steaming pots of fish stew, the mummified baboons. For centuries, the ancient Egyptians imported and mummified baboons that were kept in captivity within their borders. Some were used as service animals or as symbols of wealth and prestige, while others were dedicated to sacred rituals honoring the god Thoth, who was sometimes depicted with the head of a baboon. Yet, what intrigued primatologist and anthropology professor Nathaniel Dominy was not merely the animals themselves, but their origins. In an interview with Live Science, he explained that the ancient Egyptians recorded clear evidence of importing baboons from a mysterious land known as Punt. Was Punt a real place, or just a legend? Many ancient records suggest it was real. Egyptian texts described Punt as a homeland, praising its wealth of trade goods such as incense, gold, ebony, ivory, and exotic wildlife. Yet for centuries, scholars could not pinpoint Punt's exact location until recently. Dominy and his team analyzed isotopes from modern baboons and compared them to data collected from 7 mummified specimens, hoping to trace their origins and uncover the true location of Punt. 2 of the mummified baboons dated back to the New Kingdom, while the remaining 5 were from after 332 BCE during the Ptolemaic period. While the later specimens appeared to have been raised in Egypt, those from the New Kingdom originated from regions that are now Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Somalia. According to Dominy's analysis, Punt likely existed along the southern Red Sea coast, stretching across modern Eritrea and Somaliland. Although this cannot yet be confirmed with absolute certainty, all evidence points to this hypothesis, bringing researchers closer to solving the long-standing mystery of the legendary land of Punt. Aliens in the Hopi tribe. Long before the internet buzzed with theories about a hollow Earth or ancient aliens, the Hopi people of North America told stories that make many modern legends pale in comparison. The Hopi are one of the oldest surviving cultures, passing down their oral traditions through thousands of years. Unlike most ancient civilizations that believed their gods descended from the skies, the Hopi spoke of powerful beings that rose up from within the earth itself. These gods did not arrive like the Anunnaki, they emerged from the depths like something out of Cthulhu's realm. According to Hopi legend, the earth is alive and hollow. At its core dwell the Ant people, or Anu human-like beings with antennae, intelligent, and often depicted on Arizona's rock carvings. The Hopi speak of 4 worlds, each one destroyed because humanity fell into corruption. They believe they are living in the 4th world today, and so are we. The 3 previous worlds were wiped out by fire, ice, or floods, and each time humanity perished, the Ant people saved the faithful, leading them into underground cities while the surface burned, froze, or drowned. Legend has it the Ant people provided food, taught humans how to store supplies, and helped them start over. This cycle of destruction and rebirth has repeated itself countless times. The Hopi believe humanity has been annihilated and reborn over and over again. The most recent catastrophe was the Great Flood. You've probably heard of a global flood that destroyed mankind, right? It appears in nearly every tradition: the Bible, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and countless world myths. The Hopi view of the earth as a womb with secret gateways mirrors Buddhist legends of the underground city of Agartha and Native American tales of a lizard city beneath Los Angeles, but that is a story for another time. Before the flood, the Hopi speak of an extremely advanced civilization. They say the world was once ruled by a global society that invented patuas, or flying shields, machines capable of traveling vast distances, soaring into the skies, and unleashing destruction. Sound familiar? They were essentially UFOs. The Hopi tell how these people abused their technology, triggering a global disaster sent by Sotuknang, the nephew of the creator. The tale mirrors stories of the Nephilim corrupting the world before God sent the flood, or the myth of Atlantis, sunk by the gods for its arrogance. Could the Hopi have preserved knowledge of a civilization that lived before the Great Flood? Perhaps every ancient civilization is just the lucky remnant of a world rebuilt after an apocalypse. The ram-headed sphinx and the flooded tomb. In early 2019, archaeologists and workers discovered a 3.5-meter-tall ram-headed sphinx statue at Gebel el-Silsila, near Aswan. This sandstone sculpture, over 3,000 years old, was found in an ancient carving workshop. Experts are unsure why it was abandoned, but believe it might have been a cancelled commission. According to archaeologist Maria Nilsson, director of excavations at the site, the statue was likely carved near the end of Amenhotep III's reign. He, the grandfather of King Tut, may have ordered the statue, only for it to be left unfinished after his death. Located along the Nile, Gebel el-Silsila served as both a quarry and a workers' settlement, as evidenced by a cemetery containing the remains of men, women, and children from the 18th dynasty. In recent years, archaeologists have uncovered remarkable finds here, including statues of a powerful couple, Neferku and his wife, carved directly into the cliff face discovered in what is now northern Sudan. Beyond these, scientists uncovered a flooded mass grave containing a mixture of human bones. Over 50 individuals, 1/3 of them children, were buried together in a tomb now submerged underwater. Adult male skeletons bore signs of back pain and fractures, evidence of hard labor. They were buried with enough care to confirm they were not slaves, yet the reason so many were interred together remains unknown. Egyptologists believe rediscovering their names holds deep religious meaning. Speaking their names and finding them again after thousands of years ensures their place in the afterlife. The Amarna letters. The earliest examples of international diplomacy are recorded in the Amarna letters, a collection of 382 clay tablets dating to the 14th century BCE. These documents preserved correspondence between Egyptian pharaohs and rivals such as the kings of Babylon, Assyria, the Hittites, and Mitanni, revealing surprisingly human emotions amid competition and delicate negotiations. The kings discussed exchanging princesses, arranging marriages, trade agreements, and complaints about Egypt's power. One letter even features a minor wife writing to the queen, lamenting that she was supposed to receive 2 solid gold statues, but was sent only gilded wooden ones. The letters also established rules and protocols of communication representing the first diplomatic system, known as the Amarna system. It promoted equality among the great powers of the time. The letters opened with formal greetings, addressing each other as brother when of equal rank. This system endured for over 2 centuries, helping maintain relative peace and stability in the region. The tablets span multiple reigns of the 18th dynasty, including Amenhotep III, Akhenaten, and possibly Smenkhkare or Tutankhamun. Discovered in pits beneath an administrative building in the 1880s, they were immediately recognized as a treasure trove. Written in Akkadian cuneiform, they are mostly letters sent to the pharaohs, with only a few written by them. The Magnificent Tomb. During the Roman rule of Egypt, less than 2,000 years ago, a woman named Demetria was buried in a lavishly decorated tomb within the vast necropolis of Saqqara, a site now at the center of groundbreaking discoveries. A joint team of Egyptian and Japanese experts uncovered the tomb in 2019. Inside, carvings showed Demetria wearing a white dress, holding a cluster of grapes, with an unidentified pet beside her. At the request of Live Science, Egypto-Roman expert Roger Bagnall translated the Greek inscriptions on the tomb's images. One carving of Demetria in her white dress read, "Demetria, daughter of Menelaus, granddaughter of Ammonia, a fitting farewell." Bagnall explained that Ammonia was likely her grandmother, and her grandfather may have been considered illegitimate, which is why his name was omitted from the epitaph. Another carving depicted the gods, Thoth, Seth, and Anubis with protective wings, alongside an inscription translated as, "Of Menelaus, son of Philemon, who serves and honors." According to Bagnall, the rare word therapeutes was used to indicate service to the gods rather than to humans. The team also found remnants of the mummy, small statues, and 2 cat figurines. The lost city of Nefertiti's daughter, beneath the golden sands of the Mediterranean coast, where gentle winds once swept across the beaches of Alexandria, an ancient secret lay dormant for thousands of years. On a rocky outcrop west of modern Alexandria, archaeologists stumbled upon the remains of an entire Egyptian city. This was not just a scattering of ruins, but a once thriving metropolis layered with history, tied to the story of Nefertiti's mysterious daughter. The city dates back about 3,400 years and likely began to take shape during the reign of Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh who worshipped the sun god. The site, known as K-El Murus, lies between the Mediterranean Sea and Lake Marut. For years, experts believed this area held little significance until the Greeks arrived around 332 BCE. Those assumptions have now been shattered. Sylvain Denin of France's National Centre for Scientific Research confirmed that this was a carefully planned settlement, complete with a sophisticated rainwater drainage system, an ancient luxury for any plumber of the time. True civilizations always prioritized water management. The city also housed a temple built by Ramesses II, not to be confused with Ramesses III, who famously battled the Sea Peoples. Alongside the temple, researchers uncovered a military fort, administrative buildings, and strong defensive walls. Together, they reveal the image of an ancient city long forgotten by time. The most striking find so far is a fragment of a wine jar inscribed with the name Meritaten, the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, possibly also the half-sister of Tutankhamun. Meritaten remains one of the most enigmatic figures in ancient Egyptian history, influential, yet shrouded in mystery. Some theories suggest she married Pharaoh Smenkhkare and may have briefly ruled under the complex name Ankh-Keperure Neferneferuaten. Excavations at the site are still ongoing, and the city's true scale remains unknown. It has yet to receive an official name. Some believe this was the royal city of Meritaten, while others suggest it may have belonged to Nefertiti herself. The mysteries continue to linger over this land, once marked by the footsteps of one of Egypt's most powerful and enigmatic women. The mysterious mummy. In early 2019, archaeologists encountered a mystery when they discovered a tomb along the Nile near Aswan, belonging to a man named Tigit. Inside, they found fragments of a wooden coffin that once held his remains, along with at least 34 mummies, including children. The tomb dates between the 6th century BCE and the 4th century CE and contained numerous artifacts: pottery jars, amphorae, food containers, fragments of funerary masks, stretchers, and a statue of a human-headed bird, an iconic soul symbol of the time. Near the tomb's entrance, archaeologists also uncovered embalming tools, including cartonnage, bitumen resin, and a lamp. This tomb is one among roughly 300 burials around the mausoleum of Aga Khan, the Shiite Ismaili spiritual leader. The true identity of Tigit, and whether his tomb is connected to the surrounding graves, remains a puzzle. The Bent Pyramid in the Royal Cemetery of Dashur. About 40 kilometers south of Cairo stand two ancient pyramids, the Bent Pyramid and its satellite pyramid, both standing for 4,600 years. King Sneferu of the 4th dynasty commissioned these structures around 2600 BCE during Egypt's Old Kingdom. The Bent Pyramid, at 101 meters tall, represents a pivotal transition in Egyptian architecture, bridging the step-sided Pyramid of Djoser and the Maidum Pyramid, which dates to the same period. The Bent name comes from its unusual shape. The lower slope rises at a steep 54 degrees, but near the top, it changes to 43 degrees, creating its distinctive curve. Sneferu's final resting place remains a mystery, though many researchers believe he may have been buried inside this pyramid. By mid-2019, the site reopened to visitors for the first time since 1956 after extensive restoration. Tourists can now enter through the north entrance, walk down an 80-meter passageway into two mysterious burial chambers, and also visit the smaller satellite pyramid, standing 18 meters high, possibly built for Sneferu's wife, Hetepheres, the tomb of Ramesses' commander. This discovery might be one you've been waiting for, or one that takes you completely by surprise. Archaeologists in Egypt recently uncovered a 3,200-year-old tomb believed to belong to a high-ranking military commander who served under Ramesses III, the last great pharaoh of ancient Egypt. The tomb, found at Tel el-Mashuta in the northeast, resembles more of a mud brick villa than a traditional burial. It is so spacious you could almost rent it out. Inside, researchers found a gold ring engraved with the name of Ramesses III, a set of bronze arrowheads, and numerous burial goods. All signs point to this being the final resting place of one of the pharaoh's top generals. This is a significant discovery, as Ramesses III is remembered as the leader who fought against the legendary Sea Peoples. The commander buried here may have played a key role in one of the greatest battles of the Bronze Age. In 1175 BCE, Egypt was enjoying a golden age filled with wealth, temples, and grandeur when the Sea Peoples appeared like uninvited guests attempting to invade. No one truly knows who the Sea Peoples were. What historians do know is that they were a powerful naval force. They destroyed the Hittites, Mycenaeans, and Mitanni everywhere they went. Bronze Age civilizations collapsed. Then they came for Egypt. Ramesses III waited like a strategic genius. He lured them into the Nile Delta, then unleashed his archers from both banks while Egyptian ships rammed enemy vessels. It was a brutal ambush, and the Sea Peoples were completely crushed. Egypt survived. The generals who helped Ramesses orchestrate this impossible victory surely received great rewards, possibly even lavish tombs filled with spoils of war. Back to this tomb, Professor Anthony Spallinger and Egyptologist David Warburton note that without an inscribed stela confirming the commander's name, they cannot be 100% certain of his identity. However, every artifact inside points to a military figure of immense power. The excavation team remains optimistic. They believe they have uncovered the resting place of a man who played a pivotal role in defending Egypt at a time when much of the Mediterranean world was crumbling like a granola bar. For now, the tomb remains open, the mystery lingers, and archaeologists continue what feels like the longest game of Clue in history. When more is revealed, you'll hear about it here on Origins Explained. The Golden Masked Mummy. In mid-2018, an Egyptian-German archaeological team announced the discovery of a complex containing an embalming workshop, multiple mummies, coffins, and a silver mask gilded with gold. The site, located in Saqqara, includes several underground burial shafts, some plunging more than 30 meters deep. The silver mask, with eyes inlaid with calcite, obsidian, and a black gemstone, dates between 664 BCE and 404 BCE. At least 2,500 years old, it is one of the oldest artifacts ever found at the site. Lead archaeologist Ramadan Badri Hussein called the mask a groundbreaking discovery, emphasizing how rare it is to find such precious metal masks today because the tombs of ancient nobles were plundered long ago. The mask belonged to a mummy inside a heavily damaged wooden coffin decorated with an image of the goddess Mut. Based on the surviving inscriptions, researchers believe the individual was a priest serving the goddess. Inside the embalming workshop built from mud brick and limestone, the team discovered numerous bowls and measuring cups labeled with the names of chemicals used in the mummification process, as well as 2 large basins likely used to treat bodies. Tunnels beneath the workshop led to more mummies. As of the latest update, excavations are still ongoing, promising further surprises. Mont Saint-Michel. Mont Saint-Michel in France may be the most fairy tale-like place still standing today. It is the second most visited destination in France, after Paris, and it's easy to see why. Mont Saint-Michel is a medieval abbey built on an island, perched atop a granite rock shaped like a pyramid, towering over a small village with old houses scattered around the island's shore. There is no other place on Earth quite like it. The entire island measures just 7 hectares. Construction began in 708 CE, with the first church dedicated to the Archangel Michael. A larger chapel was erected in the 10th century. About 300 years later, work began on the Benedictine Abbey that still stands today. Over the centuries, renovations and additions were made, but much of what you see remains original. Fortifications surrounding the island, transforming Mont Saint-Michel into a true fortress, were built in the 14th century to protect the abbey and medieval village from English attacks. Himeji Castle. Himeji Castle in Japan is essentially Japan's answer to Bavaria's Neuschwanstein, or better yet, the inspiration for Disney's iconic castle. Built on a hilltop between 1581 and 1609, Himeji still proudly stands today. Its central keep rises 6 stories, with sweeping tiled roofs that make it easy to imagine ninjas sprinting barefoot across the tiles under the cover of night. The castle complex is impressive, with 2 moats, towering stone walls to deter daring invaders, and architecture painted in elegant shades of white and grey. The man who began its construction was Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the legendary warlord who ruled Japan from 1537 to 1598. He unified the country in the 16th century, reformed its class system, restructured taxes, restored ancient temples, launched campaigns against Korea, and built castles that still capture imaginations today. One of Himeji's most brilliant features is its defensive strategy. Inside the castle are 80. 3 buildings surrounding the central keep, designed as a maze to confuse any attacker. If the castle were ever breached, invading forces would become hopelessly lost, while defenders launched counterattacks from hidden vantage points. The Roman Watchtower. Archaeologists have uncovered an ancient Roman watchtower near the mysterious city of Volubilis. When first built, this tower stood on the southern frontier of the Roman province of Mauretania Tingitana. This region was once under Roman military control, sitting at the empire's very edge. Researchers believe Rome controlled this land from the 1st to the 3rd century CE. Today, only the tower's stone foundation remains, but 2,000 years ago, it stood as a proud fortress overlooking the vast lands below. The military likely used it to monitor the flow of people and goods across the border. It was not a majestic castle or a storybook village, but a remote outpost at the edge of the Roman world. The tower was built on the desert's edge, in a place with almost no cultural overlap with Rome. Crossing the border here meant stepping into unknown lands beyond the empire's reach. For a Roman soldier stationed here, it must have felt like being exiled to the very ends of the earth. The mummified lion cubs. At the end of 2019, Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities announced the first ever discovery of 2 mummified lion cubs from ancient Egypt. The find was made by an archaeological team led by Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, in a tomb filled with cat statues and cat mummies at the Saqqara necropolis. Each lion measured about 90 centimeters long and was still a juvenile at the time of death. They were found near 3 other large mummified cats of unidentified species, possibly leopards or cheetahs. The lion cubs and larger cats were surrounded by 20 smaller mummified cats and 100 cat statues made from wood, stone, and metal, including bronze. Experts dated the tomb to about 2,600 years ago, during Egypt's 26th dynasty, based on the discovery of an ebony statue of the goddess Bastet found inside. Alongside these artifacts, archaeologists also uncovered the largest scarab beetle ever found in Egypt, with a diameter exceeding 30 centimeters. Previous excavations at the site revealed many other cat mummies and statues, confirming that this location once played a key role in the worship of cats during that dynasty. Bodiam Castle. Bodiam Castle looks as if it was lifted straight from the pages of legend. It's the kind of place where King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table might have gathered, with Merlin casting spells over towering stone walls. The castle was built between 1380 and 1385 by a local nobleman named Sir Edward Dallingridge. At the time, England was in turmoil. The Black Death swept across the country in 1348, bringing famine, death, and social chaos. In the latter half of the 14th century, England also found itself at war with France. It was a grim era for peasants, but a time of opportunity for the nobility. Sir Edward grew wealthy through war, was appointed Keeper of London by King Richard II in 1392, and rose to the highest ranks of English society. His castle stood as a bold testament to his power. Bodiam is one of the few castles in England still standing almost entirely intact. Located in East Sussex, it is open year-round for visitors to enjoy tea, wander through its inner courtyard, and admire the vast moat that surrounds the fortress. The only way to enter is by crossing the bridge that spans the original bedrock. The deep, wide moat made any attack almost impossible. Invaders needed boats to even reach the walls. For any would-be attacker, Bodiam was a fortress that refused to yield. Outro. If you found these mysterious stories fascinating, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next discoveries. We'll see you in the next video.